hello friends. So I'm trying to lean over the railing so I can get the tops of the limelight hydrangeas in the video because you see they're just starting to blush up, which is very pretty. I don't really love what that means. I will say very fall feeling today. It is that deep blue sky that you only really get in fall. A little chilly, a little chill in the air, nice little breeze. The garden is actually, I am really happy to see how many monarchs are around the garden this year. And I've been hearing from a lot of you too that you're having a really good monarch year. I'm sure it varies from year to year, but I hope that's a good sign that the monarchs are doing well and that all the work that's been done by people who are very pollinator aware now, that's maybe paying off. Anyway, today is our casual garden stroll day. Hang on, the camera is not level. Let me see if I can fix that. There we go. There, should we try the camera being level? Unedited, as usual. But today we're going to do something different because, to be honest, the garden isn't that much different. We will do one for sure here, maybe even a tour, depending on the mosquito situation, which even though this nip of fall is in the air, the mosquito situation has not changed. It's really hard to get in the garden, so there's a lot of deferred maintenance happening right now. But I am starting to get some dahlias, which is pretty exciting. But for today's tour, we're doing something different, and we're going to go on a casual garden stroll of a different garden. So a couple weeks ago, I was over in Michigan for an event sponsored by Walter's Gardens, which is the perennial growing arm of Proven Winners. Myself and several other creators were over there, so that was a great time. I took the high-speed ferry over there, so there's a high-speed ferry that goes from Milwaukee to Muskegon, and Muskegon is not far from the Walters headquarters and Spring Meadow Nursery and the Proven Winners operation over there. So it's a really convenient way to get over there because you don't have to drive. First of all, it's faster, and you don't have to drive through Chicago, and you can theoretically like work while you're on the ferry, so you don't lose any downtime to driving. I will say the day I went over there, this was the second and third time I've taken the ferry. It was like a scene out of a movie, you guys. It was I would say moderately rough, but my perspective is different because you guys know that I'm out on the lake all the time. And there was a lot of people not feeling well. And, seasickness can be kind of catchy. And so one person went down and then another person, and they were handing out barf bags, and the toilets were getting clogged. And everywhere you turn, there were people not feeling well. So it was like, wow. But it was bumpy enough that I wasn't interested in doing any work on the way over. I was planning on doing some work on the computer, and I couldn't do that on the way over because I was fine, but it was not a lot of other people were okay. Anyway, that was quite the scene. In any case, because of the ferry schedule, I got over there a little early, so I went to Meijer Gardens and Sculpture Park, which I think is in near Grand Rapids or in Grand Rapids. I took my car over on the ferry, so I was able to drive around. And that was fabulous because I had a little bit of extra time. And this is a garden that many of you have recommended to me, and a lot of people have sent postcards from there. So consider this like a little video postcard of my trip there. I did meet up with Robbie from Visit Our Garden and Chang Meng from Coastal Homestead. Were already there. So they had been there for a little bit, so I met up with them briefly. We hopped on the tram, and then we literally jumped off the tram while it was moving, which don't do that. That was bad. But we realized it was not what we were wanting to do in our short period of time there, so we weren't going to be, we thought we were going to be able to get on and off the garden, or on and off the tram to see different parts of the garden, and once you're on, it's just a tour. So we were not able to see that. So then they had to leave. They were going to another event that I didn't participate in because I've already done that part of it. So I wanted to stay at Meijer Gardens, and I was able to see a few parts of it, and I'm going to show you two of the highlights of it. So the Japanese garden which several of you have recommended to me, was a little bit blocked off. You couldn't do the full circuit because I think they have a I'm saying that right, correct? Chilhuli, Sunday mornings. Exhibit coming, so they were doing some work to prepare for that, so I couldn't like do like the full circuit, but I was able to get to most places in it and show you some of the highlights of that. And then I went to the children's garden area, which is spectacular, really spectacular. If you were in the area and traveling with kids, my gosh, you could have a great time there. They have a really cool kind of like a play fountain water area, and just really interactive. You know, children's gardens are often really interactive. So they had all of those. So that was really cool. So if you are ever over there with kids, like that would be a great way to spend a day. And the garden was beautiful. I also went into the conservatory. You guys, there's so many monarchs here right now. And here comes, oh, that one almost flew right in front of my face. You probably see some actually flittering behind me here. Stay on task, Erin. I also went into the conservatory, but for whatever reason, my short video from the conservatory will not download. I do think that both Coastal Homestead and Visit Our Garden posted some parts of videos from this. So if you're looking for more, you can always check them out. And it was just a great time. And this was all because you guys have recommended this garden to me. I did not get to the sculpture park part of it. I did have a limited amount of time, so I just focused kind of on the garden part. And then also, they have a really nice cafe there. So highly recommend checking that place out. It was really great, and I hope you enjoy this little garden stroll. Now, I don't love talking to the camera out in public, so you're gonna have to put up with a voiceover through this, but I'm not gonna chat through the whole thing, so hopefully you'll be able to just sort of get a feel for the gardens. I'm just gonna point out a few things throughout the stroll here in the voiceover that I was, you know, kind of paying attention to. All right, enjoy this casual garden stroll through a different garden. Hope you're having a great day in your garden. Thank you for watching. Hang out till the end. There'll be a few little outtakes at the end. All right, bye everybody. So once you get through the buildings here and you get outside into the actual garden, one of the first things you see is this giant berm with these beautiful sculptures on top. Berm all planted with these grasses. So the main paths here that you go in on the tram and that you can just walk on are really heavily wooded, with lots of ground covers, quite pretty. And we're just going to skip to the great part, which is the Japanese garden. You enter through this beautiful gate on one end. There's these enormous boulders placed throughout the garden that are really beautiful. What I loved was that mixed in with all these sort of exotic trees and shrubs, there are some native shrubs and some sort of ordinary type things that have been used in ways that make them feel quite exotic. Like a lot of Japanese gardens, water features prominently here, so a lot of the path is around this beautiful lake, which you're going to see here in a second. Water lilies growing in the lake there in several different areas. Then they have this boardwalk area. Here's some more of those staghorn sumacs, by the way. They have this boardwalk area that overlooks the lake, and I could not get over the reflection in the water, which of course is kind of the point of a lake in a Japanese garden. More water lilies, and this sort of meandering boardwalk. I think in many Japanese gardens this would be without the railings, but obviously this is a public garden, so you have to have all the safety precautions in mind. So one of the things I noticed was that in addition to basically everything being very heavily pruned in that Japanese Nawaki style, which I loved that tree, and meant to trained to bend over the lake like that. There were things like viburnums that were pruned up in very interesting ways. A lot of the plants you see off to the right there and along some of the pathways are actually spireas that have been pruned to be almost Japanese looking. I mean, here's a beautiful panicle hydrangea in the middle of the mix there, and it feels very. It doesn't feel out of place at all. The paths just kept going and going and going, and I was kind of stopping and starting the recording to avoid getting other people in the recording. But again, you can see there's a lot of spireas over there on the right side here. So if you've got a spirea that isn't doing something for you, or any other shrub, maybe you want to, before you pull it out, maybe try pruning it in some interesting way and seeing what happens with it. And here's the view from on top of the lake. Really interesting woven fence there. And you'll notice there are a lot of places to sit and enjoy the view. Now this is where it's really amazing. After enjoying that beautiful waterfall, I kept sort of meandering through the gardens and came across this little peninsula outlook. Then I moved over to the children's garden, and at the entrance you have these beautiful, enormous colocasias. And then there is a building near this, and outside of this building is this really kind of whimsical planting. Those are boxwoods in the back that are kind of pruned to be almost sort of caterpillar looking. And lots of annuals in here, salvias and zinnias and verbena and some more colocasia and all sorts of other things in there. Of course, we had to get a shot of the Encente banana there. More beautiful sculptures throughout the regular part of the garden before you even get to the sculpture park. And these alocasias here, look at the size of the child there, just blew me away. I'm gonna have to get some alocasias in the garden next year. I don't know what this plant was, but it had enormous leaves. And again, we're still in the children's garden here. This birch pergola was really interesting. That was all birch logs. So each one of these garden areas was broken into different senses, which is a pretty common way to manage a children's garden. So there was one for touch and scent and taste. They actually invited kids, I think, to taste some things in there. I think that's baby tut in the middle of those containers, quite overgrown and looking great in all its cousin it-ish look. That's the big fountain area. Those are all in the shape of the Great Lakes. I didn't want to get too far in there because there were kids playing over there. This butterfly is entirely planted with mostly sedums, and all that is, of course, pollinator plants underneath it. That's another view of that sort of caterpillar area. And here's this sculpture that's there. And then as we walk out, we get to see those great colocasia again. And that's the conservatory in the distance there. One of the things I noticed, this is while we were still on the tram, is that there's a certain amount of wilding allowed here. So some things that pop up that they might not have planted that are either native plants or possibly even, weedy-ish plants are allowed to stay. And it's quite beautiful. There's a lot of, goldenrod around, Canadian goldenrod, which is native but can be quite aggressive, but they allow that to stay in many of the pathways. This is going past the homestead garden area, which we did go back and revisit. I didn't take any video in that area, but Coastal Homestead has quite a bit of video from that area. So there's, Joe Pye weed growing along there, and things flop, and it's very natural looking. I will show some pictures that I took in this area because they were growing the biggest tomatoes I've ever seen in my entire life in there. So one of the sculptures that is quite famous here is this enormous horse. It's gigantic, and the structure that must be built into this to keep this thing upright and how it's anchored in the ground. Unfortunately, here's the video I took of it. So you will never know what the rest of the horse looks like because I only took a video of the legs. And then last but not least, I will leave you with one more moment from that beautiful waterfall.